Hello, this is Savius, and I'm here to talk about Oculus. I'm doing a little notepad theory crafting, which is one of my favorite things to do with Diablo. Um, besides play the game, obviously, but I like to think about ways to take advantage of specific items. And Oculus was recently revealed um, for the Sorceress. I have a level 100 Sorceress in quote unquote Season 0, and I think the Oculus is actually extremely powerful, and I wanted to talk about why I think that is and kind of go over basically the build that I'll be playing in Season 1 um, in order with Sorceress and hopefully getting an Oculus. I think it's not an uber unique, and it will be available um, fairly regularly alongside the same rarity as something like Raiment of the Infinite, which is actually also in this build. So talking about the Oculus, first I found a level 5 of 5 upgrade Oculus, an image of it. Somebody has found one yesterday. The patch just came out yesterday. And so we can see what the 5 of 5 upgrades on the Oculus could be, assuming perfect rolls. So first off, lucky hit chance is always an implicit on wands, and that's a plus 15% lucky hit chance. Not really relevant in this scenario. Don't have a whole lot of lucky hit procs, but we could actually increase that because teleport has an extremely high lucky hit chance implicitly to it. This setup here on Max Roll GG, they don't have the upgrade for Oculus yet. They haven't updated their site, but their D4 planner is absolutely exceptional, and you can play around with stats and things like that. I highly recommend it. But getting back on topic, lucky hit chance for teleport is 65% baseline. So another 15% would increase that by about 10% because they are a multiplicative modifier. And I apologize if I said that word incorrectly. There's just some words I can't say right. So anyways, something like a Frostburn or things like that where it has a lucky hit chance to restore resource and or freeze enemies is perfectly viable to build into. I think there's a lot of ways that you could take using the Oculus, but the lucky hit chance is just an implicit on the one. It doesn't really have any effect over what I'm going to talk about today. So moving on, you get +1 max evade charge. The goes up to +3 actually. So you can have baseline +4 to evade charges. Now, if you don't know, and it's not on here, I think most people watching this know the effect, the unique effect of Oculus is that it gives you the teleport enchantment for free. So basically, you have a third enchantment. I'm just showing here what the teleport enchantment does on the sorceress. It replaces evade with a short range teleport on a long cooldown. 11.2 seconds, and this is with a rank 12 teleport. So the ranks in teleport does increase or decrease the cooldown of your evade. So that is something to note. I have a rank 12 teleport because I have the +4 on boots and then +3 defensive all skills on the amulet. We'll talk more about that here as we get down through the item. So your evade actually has a couple different options when you're looking at a pair of boots here. And I need to, okay. You can get +3 max evade charges on boots. So with a perfectly rolled Oculus on the evade charges, plus the +3 on boots, plus your implicit 1, you can have 7 evade charges. Now 7 evade charges, it seems a little ridiculous, but the thing that is interesting about this is with the teleport enchantment, you can teleport 7 times before it's on cooldown. And yes, the other part of the unique part of Oculus is that it teleports you to a random location. Now, regular teleport and the enchantment teleport have a difference in the range. So basically, you're not going to be going quite as far with the enchantment, but I mean it still has a decent range, and if you've played around with it, which if you haven't, I highly recommend you do before season 1 starts, You can probably make a level 1 sorceress if you have all the renown unlocked, and level up to 15, go do the class quest. You can probably have that done in a half an hour if you don't have a sorceress with enchantments unlocked. And you can see the range on it. It's respectable. I specifically chose not to make a video or add that in my video where I'm showing the range of teleport. It's too situational depending on where you're at. In a nightmare dungeon, are you in a small enclosed room, or are you in a big open area? It can have a lot of effects on it. The bottom line is that you can have 7 charges of teleport from the enchantment. You can also, on boots, you can also get attacks reduce evades cooldown by 1.2 seconds, or movement speed. The movement speed, I'm not sure if that works afterwards. 75% movement speed after just doing a short range teleport is pretty interesting. It's pretty easy to max out your movement speed with that, but it's only 1 second, and I think these 2 items go along with the Oculus better. So I'm not really considering this, but 1.2 second cooldown reduction from your attacks does stack with the boots additional 1.2. So every time you attack, it's 2.4 second cooldown, which basically after even doing a basic attack 3 times, you're reducing the cooldown by about 7.2 seconds. The cooldown right now is at 11.2 with 12 ranks, not including the raiment. The D2 planner does not take into effect the 20% cooldown. It doesn't recognize unique aspects when factoring in these things. So 11.2 second cooldown. If you factor in 20% on that, that's about another 2 to 3 seconds. So you're looking at 14 seconds. So just attacking a few times will cut this cooldown in half, and you have 7 charges of it. So basically, in practice, with either the max evade charges or the huge cooldown reduction, you will always have your evade available. The other interesting thing is if you have 7 evade charges and you have raiment, and you could just hold down spacebar and theoretically hit monsters 7 times with teleport, triggering raiment, stunning them. There's a passive on the skill tree that every time you stun an enemy, you deal damage to them. I have the upgrade to that on this amulet, so you can see right there it's 90% increase or 90% damage just from your evade. So and you stun them and you bring them in a circle. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot more that can go into that, but I think for the basis of this video, you can now understand that 7 evade charges and attacks reducing your evade charges mean you always have that up. Not to mention the fact that if this teleports you into a bad spot, you're almost guaranteed to just hit spacebar again and be repositioned. And I wanted to talk about how to turn that downside of being teleported into a spot you might not want to be into A, an advantage, and B, the fact that you can immediately hit spacebar again to get yourself out of that position, and you will have teleport on your bar, obviously, with up to 27 ranks of teleport, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about. The teleport CD breakpoints by rank for reducing the cooldown. At level 1, it has an 11-second cooldown. Again, this isn't taking into effect raiment, but we can do the math afterwards to figure out how much cooldown it has. In addition, you still get cooldown reduction on your boots and on your amulet of 28%. So raiment is actually pretty much nullified, the negative of it. But it also kind of nullifies this. But it's so powerful that if anybody has played with Sorceress, you understand what I'm talking about. So the tele-CD breakpoints by rank are level 1 is at 11, level 3 is at 10 seconds, level 4 at 9 seconds, level 7 at 8 seconds, and level 11 has a 7-second cooldown. At rank 12, you can see it's still 7 seconds. So as you get more and more ranks in this, you have to put more and more points into reaching the next breakpoint for the cooldown. As you can see, it goes 2, and then it goes rank 4, it goes down another second, and then you need 3 points in it to go down the next point, and then you need 4 points in it. So just using that math and doing the math in my head, you can probably assume that if you have the maximum plus 15 ranks of teleport, you'll, like I said, you'll have a rank 27 teleport at that point. You could technically have 31 if you had a Shaco on, but let's just pretend that we're never going to get a Shaco. I mean, it's an uber unique. I think in season 2, maybe when they release like tier 5, we'll be able to theory craft with Shacos, but right now I don't theory craft with Shacos or any uber unique for that matter, just because the likelihood of getting one is so low, and it opens up so many other possibilities that I'm not going to go down that path. But I think we can assume that we'll probably have teleport at about a 3 to 4 second cooldown with a rank 27 teleport. I don't think that's unfeasible. I think I'm actually being a little bit conservative there. You could maybe have it down to 2 seconds, but I don't know. So with that rank 27 teleport, it actually deals damage, and people kind of forget about that. You can see here rank 12 is only 53% damage. It's not anything to write home about. It's hard to scale it because you have to scale lightning damage, and you're unlikely to proc vulnerable every time you're hitting with a teleport, just because you have so few ways to activate teleports. Excuse me, to activate vulnerable. You have like ice shards and Frost Nova and Frozen Orb all have a pretty reasonable way to proc vulnerable on sorceresses as of right now. I don't know what the malignant gems might bring, but just looking at it from this perspective, it's not really worth trying to scale this. However, the Shocking Impact passive deals more damage and procs every time you do this because Raiment stuns with teleport. So that also includes with the evade. So we could have a 2 to 4 second cooldown on our teleport actual, which is another interesting thing talking about evades. The Oculus's downside of being teleported into a random location. Generally, throughout a fight, you're going to have your teleport up through various other means. There's a passive that reduces or eliminates the cooldown of your defensive skills. That can only proc once every 10 seconds, but it's still, with 1 point in it, you're always going to have that proc active. Just because, I mean, it's another lucky hit thing, and teleport basically procs it by itself the first time you use it, so you'll immediately have another teleport available when you're engaging an elite pack. So we've talked about ranks of teleport. We have cooldown on gear. Again, they kind of, with the cooldown nerfs, and I don't even think max roll is updated with the cooldown reduction, but we can essentially extrapolate that the 20% increased cooldown is going to be negated by our cooldown reduction on our gear. We have quite a bit of it, but I think you'll still get about 10 to 15% cooldown reduction. When you get a cooldown as low as 5 seconds, it's not as rewarding to have that much cooldown, because even with like 20%, you're only getting about 1 second off the cooldown, whereas 20% on a 13-second cooldown is over almost 3 seconds. So the points in it kind of ruins the cooldown reduction, but you still get a pretty reasonable teleport cooldown. I think 2 to 3 seconds is more than feasible. Obviously, that's with perfectly rolled gear, but if we're going to theory craft, we're going to shoot for the stars. I've often theory crafted builds and had gear that doesn't have perfect rolls and it still works. Obviously, you want to get as close to perfect as possible. That's what Diablo series is all about, is min-maxing, and so that's what we're shooting for. So we've already kind of discussed Raiment quite a bit, what it does with teleport and how it pulls everything in. It's basically one of the best and most fun things you can do on the Sorceress. Um, I have theory crafted builds without it, and the idea of not using it and not relying on it, and it's perfectly feasible, but it is really fun, and um, you really control the battlefield with all this evade and low. You're gonna have monsters be unstoppable fairly quickly when you're not one tapping them, because you will you will proc their unstoppable threshold quite quickly. Um, Bosses, though, the teleport actually increases the stagger bar significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean very significantly. So it might be possible to, especially on a large boss, just hold down spacebar when you first get in there, and depending on RNG, you might have them staggered right in the beginning with just all your teleport nonsense on the enchantment. But that has to be tested, and I think that depends on if the boss moves, if it and the hitbox size of it, and various other things. But so how to take advantage of this build, because you're going in random spots? There's an aspect for ball lightning. Um, excuse me. There it is. That makes it orbit around you rather than being fired. And because it's orbiting around you, when you teleport, it goes with you, and it lasts quite a bit of time. And you just want to cast as many of those as you possibly can, and just teleport on top of enemies and immediately blow them up, because you have 5 always critting ball lightnings around you. Why do we have always critting ball lightnings? Well, because we have on the ring here, and you could probably swap these out. The ring would give you a plus 60% critical strike chance for your ball lightning. They haven't updated on max roll that this ball lightning thing actually it was bugged in the previous patch. It's now better. I believe if this is on an amulet, it will say 5 to 15%. So a perfect roll would only be a 5% damage reduction. I think on a two-handed weapon it would be a 0% damage reduction, but I'm not sure. Regardless, we have to use the Oculus amulet, so it's probably best on here. But I think you could swap these, and I don't think you would lose too much DPS. I think actually this would be an increase in DPS depending on how much crit chance you have on your gear. But let's just say you have it on your amulet. I was just adding these on here. It is 60% critical strike chance when you cast with 100 mana or more. So on the mana portion of it, you have your helmet, which has plus 27 mana on a perfect roll max upgrade, and your rings, you get plus 18 on both of those. And I think that's it for gear. So your gear gives you plus 63, I think. Let's see, 27 and 18 was 37, 45. Yep, 63. That's where this number comes from here, from your gear. Your Paragon board, I've highlighted the items. The 2 Paragon boards, Static Surge and Elemental Summoner, both have mana clusters on them. They're the only ones. And they have plus 4, plus 8. So that's 12, 16, 24, 28, 32, 36. As you can see, I have that right there. And then the skill tree has plus 9 on it right here from Devastation. So plus 9. So you get 108 maximum mana, giving you a total of 208 mana on your Sorceress. And this passive says over 100 mana. So we can cast quite a few spells with guaranteed crit chance as long as we keep our mana over 100. And at 208 mana, that can happen quite frequently. Do not forget that the Sorceress has passive mana regeneration. It's not like the Druid where you get no resource regeneration. And Ball Lightning by itself costs 50 mana, which is why, of course, we have mana cost reduction from our Amulet and mana cost reduction on our Focus for bringing our mana cost of Ball Lightning down to 34 mana. So 208 mana, you can cast Ball Lightning 3 times just by itself, and you will have 3 essentially guaranteed crit Ball Lightnings right off the bat. And then you teleport into something, stun it, pull it all in, you have 3 Ball Lightnings, and yeah, you probably blow up low health pool packs of white monsters and shit like that. Now, the Paragon for Static Surge also has the node Stunning Close Enemies restores 10 mana. So, if you teleport in, if you cast 3 Ball Lightnings and then teleport in, pulling up, let's say, on average 5 or 10 enemies, you'll immediately bring back 50 to 100 mana, and then you just start Ball Lightning again, and getting ready for your next teleport. By the way, each time you're casting Ball Lightning, you're reducing the evade cooldown. If you're in a nasty situation or you just want to hit spacebar again, you're reducing your evade cooldown for a random teleport to a random location. You can hit that, pull out of the pack, and then by then your teleport will probably be off cooldown, just because of how low our cooldown is now on it. And you can just teleport right back into the pack. If you got lucky and it teleported you into the same pack again, well, you've just pulled them all again closer. Any enemies that you didn't hit with your initial teleport will also be pulled in closer, and you've just generated more mana from stunning more enemies. On top of that, you have mana regen. The Sorceress has a base 10 mana regen per second. With some gear of resource generation on rings and your focus, and yeah, you can get that up to about 13 mana per second, which is roughly a little more than a third of the cost of Ball Lightning. In addition, you have resource generation from the stun here. As you can see, the Paragon board stun thing now goes up to 13 mana with resource generation as well. So you are getting quite a bit of mana per second. You will always be over 100 mana, except when you're fighting bosses. But in the case of bosses, you won't be able to stun them, but a lot of times they'll bring in little minions that you can stun. In addition to that, the enchantment, or one of the things for Ball Lightning, it increases crackling. It has a good chance of forming a crackling energy, and then you can get the node where absorbing crackling energy you gain 12 mana, which is also buffed by this resource regeneration factor of it. We got damn near over 50%, so I didn't actually factor that in. Oh no, it does. It's only on the rings. Sorry, the rings and the yeah. So we're looking at almost 60% increased mana regeneration. Yeah, so it's actually 18 mana per second. I must have misread that. If you've made it this far in the video, looks like we just got even better. The Paragon nodes restores 18 mana, so over half of the cast of Ball Lightning per stun. So if you're only stunning one monster, and with your regen over 1 second, you will be able to cast another Ball Lightning. So obviously quite powerful, and you will always be above that 100 mana threshold. So your amulet basically gives you 60% crit chance, which is clearly insane. So that's pretty much everything that I would like to talk about. I guess I should finish my thought on this. This now, getting a crackling energy will give you 18 mana. With the it would be quite easy. There we go. With Chain Lightning, the Chain Lightning enchantment automatically forms after you spend 100 mana. So after every third Ball Lightning, procs a Chain Lightning, and then you can either increase its damage a little bit. You can get it like a 20%. This doesn't multiply with itself, but it does. It is additive multiplier, so you can get about a 20 to 30% increase in the damage. What I think it would be a little bit better is when it critically strikes, and it is a mastery skill, so it does work, or excuse me, it is a core skill, so it does work as well with the elementalist aspect. You get a crackling energy, so even on bosses, you're generating a ton of crackling energy with your high crit chance, and you're absorbing a ton of mana, so you never really have any mana issues, even on single target. So that is pretty much the build, though. I think that this Oculus is super underrated. The way it was spoiled in the patch notes, you only saw the unique effect, which Oculus D4. Let's just see if we can get a preview of it. I don't know. Anyways, it only showed that in the patch notes, so people were very skeptical. And if we're gonna talk about Oculus, it was a D2 item. It was the sorceress's class-specific wand or orb or whatever you want to call it, and it had a 25% chance of when you got hit, you got teleported to a random location. Of course, sometimes you would get hit and it would teleport you right into the pack, a champion pack or something like that, and you would get wasted right away or frozen or whatever. It put you in some bad spots. Running it on a hardcore character was kind of scary, but the stats on it were insane for how common Oculus is. I mean, it's a mid-tier unique. So you got +3 to sorceress skills, and you got magic find and faster cast rate, and I mean, it was like easily one of the best items that you could get for a sorceress for quite a while. And obviously teleporting into a random spot, but having control of when that happens can be very powerful. It's not as bad as it was with the Oculus, where you don't control when it happens. You don't control where it goes. Whereas this, you just don't control where it goes. But it's easily negated through the fact that our teleport has a massive cooldown, and the fact that you can just hit spacebar again and be immediately taken out of it. And people forget that teleport does grant you unstoppable. So you basically, you can't be frozen or anything like that. Your evade now gets you out of being frozen or feared or stunned, or all the other nonsense that can happen in high tier nightmare dungeons. You basically are permanently unstoppable with this teleport enchantment, and it's free, so you can run another thing. I'll leave that open to discussion on what exactly is the best thing to tell or put as your second enchantment slot, or even if you don't like the crackling energy from chain lightning and the free cast of it. There's a multitude of ways to build this character. But that's basically a way too long video, almost 30 minutes of rambling about why I think Oculus is super underrated. So if you've made it this far, I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you all in Season 1. Have a great day.